Pardon? Konnichiwa? Im letzten Part lasen wir Chapter 11, The Witch and the Holy Night, Part 1. Und da, to the Church, A Wolf's Tale, Adoration and Impatience und To the Night. Und jetzt fangen wir ohne Umschweife mit der nächsten Episode an. Chapter 12, Witch on the Holy Night. Die Hexe in der Heiligen Nacht. The gold wolf's ears stood pointed, twitching in response to the sound around it. Its meal finished, it curled up into a ball in anticipation of nap time and yawned half from boredom. The old abdominal classroom had fulfilled its purpose many moons ago. For a month the wolf had spent his time resting on atop a heap of disheveled desks. His name was Luke Beowulf. He was a superb werewolf named after his son at his birthplace, and a hero of legend upon leaving there. It goes without saying, he was not from this country. He came from a land deep within the European wilderness, surrounded by mountains and forests. His home was a realm of no human had ever set foot in. In the isolated world, forgotten by time, diminishing the race of werewolves lived in peeves. This was where Beo first appeared. In a cave on the outskirts of the village, the werewolves found a child, bearing the same golden coat as their ancestors. The child was sleeping soundly as if in his natural habitat. The village welcomed the new member with open arms. 2,000 years of advanced civilization had been cruel to them. As the forests were destroyed, valleys unearthed, and waters polluted, the werewolf birthright dwindled. They were now facing one birth a decade. The child's golden coat deviating from the typical grey or white and shed only by their ancestors who were treated as gods fed, like a sign that the prayers had been answered. A bloodline in entropy. The werewolves were forced to embrace change. This radiant child at least temporarily made them forget about their troubles. Alas, as time passed, the hope turned to disappointment. The golden wolf was not the salvation. For some reason, Luke, the ray of golden sun, remained a child. Decades passed, and still he did not grow. Forever young, immortal, cursed. He searched the village for his birth mother, but to no avail. He searched the village for someone who understood his plight, but to no avail. Over hundreds of years he came to realize something. He was different. Very different. Neither male nor female. Neither strong nor weak. Ignorant of life and death, joy and fear. Dead things, a spirit born of nature, might look like us werewolves, but don't let it fool you. But the child himself needed not conjecture to know his own true nature. He was perfect, and therefore he was alone. To the golden wolf, the world was too small. That was why. Indeed, that was the very reason. He wanted to know what life was. He wanted to know loss, if he was all-powerful, he wants to know the mystery behind his all-powerfulness. Because, as it was, his existence was meaningless. The Golden Wolf was at lost, as were the werewolves around him. They referred to him, but at the same time wanted nothing to do with him. Luv moved back to the cave he was discovered in and resigned himself to a life of seclusion.
太陽のルー？ルーガルじゃなくて？そりゃ面白い。偶然にしちゃできすぎだ。
And then, one day, a quirky mage visited the village.
またガタガタとうるさい。トウコさんはあれだよね。派手好きなくせに豆だよね。
From his place on top of the rubble, Beo peered into the hallway. He thought his fussy master was busy dealing with Misaki's ley lines, but she was engrossed in making traps. Warm-up punch since they made the dilapidated building their higher makeshift workshop. Creating a new trap for intruders became a daily pursuit of Toko's.
安全を用意しておくなんて他の生き物は大変だ。
Having like this its birth, knowing neither in fantasy nor dotage, he taught differently than others. For he was perfect from the day he was born, never declining, never improving. As such, he had no comprehension of weakness. Childlike, fickle, and without morals, he had no concept of good and bad, as either a human or a wolf. A beautiful creature disconnected from the world around him, he was on top of all other creatures. Without exception, his master, Toku Aosaki. She showed him a sparkling, delicious world, and above all found her scent refreshing. To him, the world was divided into that what was cold and what was not. Cool what was not. Your preferences in leisure pursuits were of no consequence to him. And he never took gender into account. The only thing that mattered for him was whether a person's life was logical and therefore cool. Toku Aosaki had faults, but she smelled good.
ベオ、昼食は済ませたか？
Beo's masters entered the classroom, presumably done with her traps for the day.
夜が本番だ。それまであまり羽目を外すなよ。
Something like now she would nag him, but on the whole his master pleased him. In reality, the contract binding her to him was not particularly powerful. If he wanted to, he could tear her into pieces at any time. No human could restrain him. However, he had no intention of killing Toko in exchange for his freedom. And there was a reason for this. In order to move about freely in human society, he needed someone like her. As long as she did not offend him, he had no reason to rock the boat. However, habe ich schon gefragt, wie Toko es bitte geschafft haben soll, nur mit ihren Haaren den Wolf zu bändigen.
やっと本番か。待たせすぎだよ、トウコさん。
The promise she had made him in his cave and the reality of the situation had begun to come apart at the seams.
最高の神秘と戦わせてやる。
The most powerful mystic was complained up to now, but his patient was wearing thin. The fight with the newest magician last night was an enormous letdown.
そういうな。私も昨日は拍子抜けだったんだから。いいけどね。実はあの子、使わないんじゃなくて、使えないだけじゃないの？
His master situation turned serious. There was agreement at the worst question though. For she had already taken herself the same and many other similar questions.
いや、使うぐらいなら死んだ方がマシなのかもな。 そんなバカなことがあるの？使わないと死んじゃう状態だったんだよ。
だからそんなバカな考えが成立するぐらい。
Glaub mir, sie wird es dort sein. Then it must be too terrifying to use. Toku finished in her head. She stopped short of voicing it and chuckled to her emotional outburst.
どれほどのものか想像がつかないのは確かだ。だがまあ根本は変わらないさ。魔法がどのような奇跡神秘の類であれ、魔術師である以上。
With those words, Biomaster walked out of the room, emphasizing that his role in all this was to face Aoko. Only at that very moment.
魔法ね。
The bored look in his eyes shifted. He recalled the rest of the girl, his long tongue sliding over his chainsaw like fangs. Make no mistake, he would finish his meal. He was the oldest werewolf, the golden god of the forest. For as long as he could remember now, from the moment he appeared, he had been the most powerful creature of all. Arquai möchte hat ein Wörtchen mitzureden. Also... Das sind die most powerful creatures? Glaube ich nicht. All man-made mystics were trash before him. Mashup was lovable, and mystic artificial miracles, which even surpassed that, were superfluous. Futile, their very existence was an insult to him.
もちろんそういう契約だし、ちゃんと平らげはするけれど。
That was the extent of the pact. Once he had dealt with this so-called true magic, he was free. His eyes burned with the wolf inside of him. His fangs more twisting into a sadistic beastly grin. Kapitel 12 Witch on the Holy Night 2. It was just past 7 p.m. Misaki High School old building stood silently. When the life of the city reached the area, the forest and the mountains kept the area hushed. Nothing unusual. During winter vacation, the old building, now still covered in yesterday's snow, was rarely used. Without signs of life, such unused structures were mere monuments of what once was, nothing more. The old school building would remain that way until the start of the new semester. Behind the vast forest grew darker by the minute. If the building had died in just under 2 weeks of vacation, what had become of the forest over the years? The wall of overgrown trees filtered out the noise of the city and most of the moonlight. An otherworldly realm had been taken root, not even the 2 miles away from town. Piercingly cold night air footsteps crunched through the powdery snow.
この辺りに仕掛けはなさそうね。それでどうするの？このまま旧校舎に忍び込む？
まさか私らがやってきたことなんてとっくにバレてるわ。隠れても意味はないし、何より敵のアジトに入ってどうするのよ。盗みが目的じゃないでしょ今回は。
後ろから切りつけるのは強盗。
それができれば苦労はないんだけどね。まあ忍者の真似事は私というかアリスの芸風じゃないでしょ。そもそもやる気満々なのはこっちもあっちも同じってこと。
The sound of the footsteps stopped in unison. The old forgotten Misaki High School building stood before them. What used to be the schoolyard was now a barren snowscape. Reclaimed by the forest, the building looked a shell of its former self. The surrounding trees resembled standing mourners at a funeral.
せっかちなお嬢さん方だ。タイムリミットまであと4時間はあるというのに。
Along the middle of the white altar was the lone, scarred red mage. As she came out from the forest, Oko lowered herself slightly, scowling at the distant target. Next to her, Alice stood motionless. The bare branches of the trees cast long, thorny shadows. Orca was reminded of Sleeping Beauty, except the mage wasn't nearly as pleasant as the princess in that. Not to mention she wasn't sleeping and there was no prince. Regardless, the princess came out of her schoolhouse castle to greet her challengers.
その体で無理をして。あなたのそういうところ、姉としてどうかと思うわ、青子。
Tokyo grinned faintly. Orko fought back the urge to respond. Meanwhile, Alice stood in silence, uninterested in sibling rivalry. Tokyo stood about 100 feet away. With their sense of sharpened through measure of the silence of the forest, they could hear each other perfectly. The golden wolf was nowhere to be seen. Tokyo faced the two girls alone. Alice's black overcoat and winter hat were typical items of clothing for a mage battle. A few paces in front of her, Orko, whose combat garb was completely out of place, a Misaki high school uniform. She had asked Alice to bring a change of clothes for her, but there must have been some misunderstanding. That was a trivial miscommunication. Tokyo seemed to think it had some special meaning.
ところで、始める前に一ついいかな。気になって仕方がないし、この先機会もないだろうから聞くんだけど、あなたの戦闘服ってそれなの？青子。
Was für eine geile Frage! Tokyo spoke clearly despite the distance. Was able to communicate her deep-seated scorn without trouble. Ark would rather attack than engage in small talk, but she decided to take the bait.
そんなわけないでしょ。今までこういう機会が多かっただけよ。数えるなら今日を含めて4回しかないわ。私はまだ現役だからそれも悪くはないかもしれないけど。いつか早いでしょ、こういうのも。
Ork was should have emphasized her words. For a split second, Tokyo's eyes narrowed.
呆れたな。相変わらずのローセンスだ。
それはどうも。人形を実の妹に見立てる異常者にそう言われるなら。
With that, the two fell silent and glared at each other. The bloodlust cut through the thick, cold air like a knife. While the two of them seized each other up, Alice surveyed the area around Tokyo. There was no indication of anyone or anything was lying in wait near her. Perhaps she should see if the werewolf was still in the old school building. Maybe Tokyo didn't feel like Orko and Alice were much of a threat in the injured state. Or was she really not expecting the account to take so early, so the werewolf wasn't ready? After some computation, Alice summarized it was former. She really was going to fight alone. Her arsenal comprised her mystic eyes and blue magecraft. That was more than enough to deal with Orko and Alice in the current state. Alice, all I need is one shot. Orko signaled to Alice behind her with the movement of her finger. Alice had no objections. The original plan was for her to keep the werewolf busy. With the mirror as a backup, Orko was hoping to catch Tokyo off guard. They had a few other cards up the sleeves, but the fact remained that a smash the attacks wouldn't affect the werewolf. So they decided to ignore it and focus on taking out Tokyo. Not the best strategy, but it was all the two of them could come up with. But they'd been thrown a curveball. Tokyo had the upper hand, so she was allowed to use the beast. Orko wasn't about to let this opportunity go to waste. But his next with something better, she would settle things before the man even showed up.
じゃあ今度はこっちの番ね。どう？結界の張り直しは進んでる？
Welche Felder?
まさか昨日の今日よ。まだ手をつ
Ah,
けて
die
も
Felder.
大体私の目的は霊脈の奥にあるもので結界そのものじゃない。張り直しは予定にないさ。まあ土地を暴くなんて面倒な真似をするよりお前を暴いた方が早いのかもしれないが。
やっぱりそれが目的だったのね。ならなおのこと、あんたを魔法使いにするわけにはいかないわ。
Orko's blue eyes burned brightly with a fiery fighting spirit. Even though her sister was ready to pounce, Tuko remained motionless, but for her mouth, which twisted into a smirk.
魔法使いか。確かにまだ執着はあるね。私には移植されなかった魔術刻印と青崎の伝える魔法の正体だがもういいよ。惜しくはあるが到達すればどちらも自分で用意できる。それとも今ここで私のために魔法の正体を見せてくれるのかい？
Tuko's look came out flatly, but her eyes mocked her sister. It was true, however, that if Orko wanted to defeat Tuko, her best chance would to use the mysterious true magic. The only problem was that she couldn't. If she could, she would have used it to avoid being mauled last night. Ako Osaki couldn't use true magic. Tuko believed she needed to fulfill some kind of condition. The protection her grandfather placed on the formula was to prohibit miracles from being easily realized. However, that was because he was concerned about the human world. It was no exaggeration to say he would feel nothing if magic leveled the entire city. The truth was, the true magic never had any conditions. Orko was being held back by trauma. These five privileged, the only powers of their kind, were bound by cognitive seals. That's why Tuko looked down on her naive little sister. So weak, a body incapable of handling magic could be cut down for a mere sword. Aoku knew better than everyone else why she couldn't forgive her sister so ridicule. Trust her using true magic, huh? A pathetic taunt. If that was how she wanted to play, then so be it.
ええ、お望みとあらばね。
But because of poor rage, Orko made her move. Her colorless shoes span across the untamed snowfield. Like a stone skipping across the water. As Orko charged forward, she disappeared. Only her footprints advanced like bullet holes in the snow. Tuko held her ground. Concealment was elementary magecraft. More than likely, the power came from one of Alice's trinkets. It was simply a yet effective countermeasure to Mystic Eyes. Tuko Mystic Eyes used to lock property to bind an opponent. It did not have the Logos property to discern truth through an illusion. Once the magic workings were revealed, a weakness was exposed.
足癖が悪いのも変わらず。
In a mere 4 seconds, the opponent had closed 10 yards and was still speeding up. It appeared that she had given up on our mage battle and was going to move in for melee. The other girl, Alice Grungy, didn't take a single step.
被弾覚悟の特攻。アリスからご筆ももらっているのでしょうけど、反省なさい、青子。切り札というものはあくまで自己の力によるものを言う。
Sneering Tuko raised her left arm, holding it out in front of her threateningly. 10 more yards. Unfortunately, her footprints gave away her position.
そう、
took a bang engraving the rune into the air. But before she could finish, Orko's footsteps stopped. She was still too far away for a close combat. But a strange place to end her attack. No, wait. Could she really stop so suddenly at that speed? Toko made a snap decision. She quickly raised her outstretched arm toward the sky as if saluting the moon. Flames tore through the air. The rune carved into the body by both wrapping it in a pillar of flames. No internal resistance spell could help. Rather than simply burning a target, the runes wrapped them in a wrath of flame. There was a silent scream falling onto the snow-covered ground. The irony extended a burning hand out from the hellish fire, as if begging for mercy. It was the stuff of nightmares. The snow melted as the fire burned the attacker alive. Chirp, chirp! The movement was far too vertical to be Aoko. Tok has already turned her gaze to Alice. She had been watching the burning corpse at all. Tok knew it wasn't Aoko for a moment the body fell to the ground. War irgendwie klar. Irritated, Tok glared at Alice. While Aoko had vanished into the thin air, she hadn't moved at all. Blue energy traced a circle around where she stood. It was forced to forth, a 4-bar grand magecraft mobilizing her magic chest. Toko only had a single action rune. No, she had mastered anything above 2 bars to begin with. This toll of energy was too much to handle. A rune formed in the magic cycle. A was the root of withdrawal, was invoked and Oko concealment was undone, allowing Tok to utilize the mystic eye. With her open pupil, the infinite mirrored eyes captured the target in an endless hell. But the magic side was literally split in two. The space in front of Oko distorted, obscuring her form like an icy mist. Ah, der Spiegel! If Toko's eyes were like opposing mirrors, then this was like a sticking a one-way mirror at the triangular point. With her vision split into two, she couldn't lock onto Aoko.
御水の鏡の効果よ、瞳子さん。青子は鏡の Y 字路の奥にいる。一本道から見ているあなたに中心は見渡せない。
Alice explained without concern. Due to the herb, Toko made Alice swallow, but was still unable to use her own magecraft. However, she could use ploys already in motion without using special energy, such as the Mansion's mirror and the aimless little blue bird. Finally, the magic bullet was loaded. Raised her right arm to reveal the luminescent crest. Toko took aim at the target, 100 feet ahead. Magic energy coursed through the gun barrel arm. For a moment she had received Alice's visibility, Aoko had begun chanting her magecraft. It took her a few seconds to notice. Aoko produced more spins in the awkward magic circles than she had ever done before. She did not snap nor draw. Instead, she advanced past her third process, a compression of magical energy. Magic blow. As she fired the blue ether that gathered before her, it would fly with a force of 10 tons. Using a magic crest to multiply the energy and machine gun her target. It was enough power to even demolish the old building behind her. August stood intensely at her sister, ready to fire. Toko had no time to counterattack, even the speed to her weight. If the fact she didn't move implied she knew The better than anyone. Acceptance filled her eyes, not fear. Aoko didn't hesitate. She squeezed the trigger on the right hand.
スワプラスターマインカイロ放て
To a plan. Starline. Oder? The last storm came out like a scream. And the impact of the ether, the surrounding snow melted and flew around. Taco was engulfed in dirt. No way she could survive Oko's bullet. He cut every bit of Oko's special energy she could muster. Viewing chaos, Oko confirmed her victory. And yet somehow she felt bitter. Das war's nicht. But then, just to give the torrent of special energy, she swallowed up later. Taco tutted at Oko's childish dashes. Her disappointment was deep. It bordered on despair.
学ぶにしては遅すぎたが、まあ聞いておけ青子。切り札というものは先に出した方の負けなんだよ。
Her voice cold and aloof. She was completely unscathed. The mage stood in the snow field, not a single speck of dirt on her overcoat. Just before the bullet reached Toko. Pardon. Pardon. She deflected it with magical energy of the same level. Oko could only stare at the scene before her. The duration of her makeshift had shocked her. Leaf-like object floated behind her sister. Oko stared like she was a living nightmare. Countless magic traps poured out from Toko's back. It all happened in an instant. The magic bullet approaching her like a tsunami. Toko slightly snapped her fingers, causing the stern of letters to rush out from behind her. Text became art. Golden flowers bloomed. There must have been hundreds. All sorts of witchcraft from even beyond Western Europe. Net? The kind normally covered into the flesh of a mage. The kind Oko he shouldn't possess. The kind only flowers of those schools should know. Blossoming magic crests, brighter than the moon. Indescribable in the air, they formed a totem pole, a guardian beast to protect Toko.
To, まあこういうわけだ。ベオだけに頼ってはいないことがよくわかったろ。
Toko's expectation was steady. Victory was in her grasp, and there was no room to rest on her laurels.
姿を隠したのは鏡の応用か。探知や隔離だけでなく援護まで行えるとはね。三大のプロイには含まれないものの、汎用性の面で言えばあれも破格のプロイだな。
持ち上げるじゃない。何？騙された負け惜しみ？い
や、ただの自画自賛だよ。何しろ今のバージョンは私とマインスターの合作だ。趣味に興じすぎてあれこれと機能を足してしまったと今更ながら悔いているところさ。
Mich würde gern Tokos Hintergrundgeschichte interessieren. Also.
その後、青子に見せかけて私に向かってきたのは例のコマドリ。それに気を取られている間の大規模な魔術の発動。私の魔眼はアリスが防ぎ、青子は攻撃だけに専念する。組み立ては悪くはない。よくやったと言っておくよ。
Toko recounted the strategy, sharing impressions as she went. Oko could not take her eyes off Toko's blooming male chest. Only Alice was paying close attention to Toko's words.
しかし、 それもここまでだ。惜しいな、青子。わずか2年であれだけの魔術を使えるのなら、あと数年もすれば一流の射手になっていただろうに。
Toko snapped the fingers again. The floating crest began to glow more brightly.
アリス、あれは何？
Orko whispered to Alice, standing next to her. She held her hand. She could not risk turning around. The second she took off her eye of Toko, the fight would be over.
見ての通り魔術刻印よ。
Alice's voice was filled with shock and discomfort. Orko shared Alice's sentiment. Magic crests were passed down through family line and took unique forms at the heart. They were merely personalized inscriptions and technically no different from grimoires. However, the reality was far different. Creation fit no set form without set shape. The ability to reclaim mystics was itself flawed. To craft it into form required an immeasurable investment of time and devotion. Magic crests were crystallization of the family's desires, ambitions, and proof of a succession's lineage. Crests had no effects on their own, but they are the ultimate symbol of a family. If no mage was willing to imbue themselves with a crest, or lacked the resolve to worship it, then the crest's meaning was lost. That was the key difference between a crest and a mere spellbook. Crests could not be shared, and imitating them was pointless. It only stood for true reason then. That even the crest manifesting by a Toko belonged to someone else, only the original owner could benefit from them.
確かに私の魔弾はあの刻印からの魔術で弾かれた。
Search for answers. Orko squinted her eyes as she glared at Toko. She knew that copying a crest had no purpose. Only the original innovator could invoke one. There was only one possible conclusion.
そう。肌に刻まず中空に浮かべてるのはそういうこと。
Orko spat a curse at her sister. Toko nodded, pleased at her enemy's quick wit.
ああ、この体には合わないのでな。私の背後の空間に固定している。本当はね、お前たちのように肉に刻んだ方がいいんだ。魔術の起動が一動作で済むんだから。だが実際に使用するのならこうするしかない。起動までの手順は一つ増えるが、マイナスばかりでもない。所詮は人事なんでね。痛みは全く感じない。
And it seemed neither physical nor mentally. Orko knew her sister was inhuman, but she never thought she would go this far.
合うわけないじゃない。他人の魔術刻印を剥がしてるんだから、血筋の称号からして馴染むはずがないわ。で、奪われた連中は死ぬこともできず、今もどこかに生かされているわけだ。刻印の持ち主が死んだら起動すらできないものね、それ。
瞳子さん、あなた。
非難される覚えはないんだが、私はかかる火の粉を払っただけだよ。向こうから戦いを挑んできたんだから、戦利品ぐらいは用意してもらわないと。
Cruel.
まあ、中にはつまらない単語を口にしたバカ者もいるが、それはそれだ。むしろ優しいと思うけどね。私を殺しに来た連中をわざわざ生かしてあげてるんだから。
In dem Punkt stimmt das.
その魔術師たちがちゃんと人間の形をしてることを祈るわ。肉親。
お前ね、私を何だと思ってるんだ。脳だけ保存とか、面倒だから100人ひとまとめにした肉塊とか、そんな手抜きなんぞするものか。きちんとカフェを用意して、食事も娯楽も睡眠も自由に提供してるんだぞ。中には一生ここで暮らしたいなんて騒ぎ立てるバカもいるぐらいだ。
Talks were hardly believable, but it was clear her crest weren't copies. Alice's skull deepened. What Toko described had no discernible benefit in her mind. Why had she gone to the trouble of stealing other mage's crests? It would have been more efficient to break down the crest into components and make replicants. For a skilled puppet master like Toko, she could have made them a much powerful puppet with those crests. It would have made a pawn loyal to her even command that much more useful than any enslaved mage.
なんでそんなことを。
そういう人なのよ、姉貴は。これで行くと決めたらそれしか目に入らない人なの。家庭より結果の人なの。ある日の話よ。テレビでピザの CM をやっててさ、私たちは唐突にあのデブ食を食べたくなった。でも悲しいかな。一般家庭であるうちにあったのはサラミだけ。うちの実家山奥にあるの知ってるでしょ。町まで行くのに1時間はかかる。中学1年だった私は我慢できなくて町まで行ったけど、ピザ屋なんか一軒もなくてとぼとぼ帰ったの。
It was a choice of living in the countryside. Misaki wished only recently gotten a conveyor belt sushi restaurant, would not see a pizzeria for another 2 years.
なのに骨折り損で家に帰ったら姉貴のやつ「おかえり」とか手を振ってピザ食べてやがったのよ。おせんべいを下地にしてみたわとか言って、外見たら鳥3羽と牛1頭丸々消えてて、ああこの女には10日交換とか手間とかお金の問題とかそういうの一切頭にないんだって思い知らされたわ。
Alice agreed that was pretty crazy.
そんな無茶なやつだからガンド打ちで目に見える傷跡を出そうなんて平気で考えるのよね。あんなのゲマトリア1節分の栄唱で同じ効果を出せるのに、あくまで呪術にこだわるから空も飛べない人形になるのよ、バカ兄貴。
The fourth puppet doppelganger made her blood boil. It was clear to Oko now that Toko had gone it on purpose to annoy her. Toko furrowed out her eyebrows at Oko's verbal assault. She had been stoic up until now, but speaking rudely about her prized puppet was crossing the line.
その人形に追い詰められたのはお前だったね。それとゲマトリアはカバラの秘術だ。私はルーン専門だからお前のように広く浅く知識を広める気はないよ。まあもっともこの刻印の所有者の一人からケルトの結界を教わりはしたのね。
Toko looked at the crest over her shoulder. Its shine was ever radiant, proving that its base shop was active.
これは城で祖父を封じ込めるのに使っていてね。半人半用のドルイド層を閉じ込めたとまではいかないが、そうだな。私では郵便ポストぐらいの大きさが限界か。ほら、昔お前が壊した赤いポスト、ちょうどあれぐらいの可愛い鳥小屋だよ。人間一人分をしまうには窮屈だろうが、祖父は肉体というより霊体に近い。見ようによってはそっちの方がふさわしいかもしれないね。
Toko stiffened as a distant laugh, her expression chilling. Her cold veneer seemed to slip slightly when it came to her grandfather. Her smile betraying the long and festered hatred he still clung to.
そういったわけでね、先の青子の魔術を防いだので、この刻印もしばらくは使用不能なんだ。今のが本当の魔法だったなら、わずか3行の刻印では打ち消せなかっただろうに。青、じゃあそろそろ終わりにしよう。抵抗をするのは自由だが、ベオ相手にそれは辛いぞ。
Toko snapped her fingers one more time. The gold mirror was hiding in the old school building. The signal to him echoed eerily through the surrounding woods. Before the echo stopped, Oko shouted back at Alice.
行ってアリス。
The order sounded like a reprimand, but Alice silently obeyed. Without hesitation, she left Oko behind to handle Toko and made for the forest. If the feat was inevitable, it would be pointless for both of them to die. If one of them could survive, then they could be around free. That was why Oko decided to be the sacrificial pawn.
瞳子自身の切り札も分かったし、アリスが本調子になれば勝てない相手じゃないものね。
Go muttered bitterly to herself, Alice's feet crunched through the snow. Instead of cursing her own death, she cursed the fact that she would not see Alice defeat Toko. For what else was there to curse except this? Alice disappeared into the forest, fleeing a fellow mage presence. Fate Oko continued to glare at her sister.
いつまでじらす気？私、待たされるのは好きじゃないんだけど。
Speaking of waiting, the werewolf Toko had called was nowhere to be seen. It should have taken him more than a few seconds to come flying out of the school building.
そうせくな。今赤ずきんを追っているところだ。黒帽子の彼女をそう例えるのはやや無理があるがね。
Her tone reeked of irony. The words traveled aimlessly across the schoolyard like a rambling announcement. August was frozen and dumbfounded. Everything Toko was saying seemed to be far away from reality. August was done with being fooled, so she turned around. The moonlight shining off the fallen snow allowed her to see far into the forest. From the white darkness, a lone boy came into view, walking towards her. He could not have been any taller than Oko's chest, but he carried Alice over his shoulder with ease. As she was nothing, he tossed her body upward. She arched through the air for several feet before dropping head first before Oko's eyes. Her neck was snapped on impact. Even though she was wiser not to, Oko reached out and caught her. Alice's light body weighed heavy as she fell into Oko's arms. The stitches on the wounds tore, dyeing Oko's arms in crimson. Oko gritted her teeth, fighting the pain shot through her body and sensation of the warm blood. Alice did not respond, but Oko could see she was at least conscious. The others must have ambushed her right after she ran into the woods. Alice bled heavily from the wolf, saw her abdomen open last night, just as like he had done to her Oko.
初めから森に潜ませていたとはね。
Across her own carelessness, she gently lay Alice's bodies down. She set her sights on the blonde-haired boy, her new target.
つまりあれよね。甘く見ていたふりで、初めから余裕なかったわ。
Even in the face of Oko's rage, he did not stop smirking. He stared back at the girl's eyes, gleaming, twinkling with the excitement at the brutally to come. The blonde hair and green eyes she saw last night, and his effeminate features now seemed ethereal, like he had changed into a being from another planet.
レオ、今日は食っていいぞ。
Toko's voice echoed from afar. The boy's grin broadened it. Nobody could have accepted that what come next. Oko rushed head first at the boy. Faster than the robin decoy, she spilled blood dripping from both arms. Toko watched wide-eyed at the spectacle. Alice could only look on with vacant eyes as she lay helplessly on the ground. The werewolf boy was caught off guard by the prey becoming predator. Oko crossed a 20-foot gap and dissected before panting food in the snow. It arrested her momentum and provided her body like a top. Even if he instantly understood what was coming, the boy wouldn't be able to dodge in time. Using moments from her sprint, she pushed her leg into the ground and sprang up. With deadly timing, her roundhouse kick swung in a wide arc toward the boy's neck, sending an explosion of force to his brainstem. It was an expert of martial arts, strengthened by magical energy. She had gotten the hang of close combat while fighting Toko's puppets. The violent kick was powerful enough to shatter a tree trunk. The boy did not move. Oko right. Shin connected firmly and stopped. A shock rippled through his neck. It was the same feedback Oko felt when she was destroyed puppet. Even if he wasn't defeated, Jetzt Seven Devils Spine. Du, ich muss kurz Taschentuch holen. Gleich wieder da. So, wieder da. Pardon. Ich was defeated shit to have Seven Devils Spine. I should look at him to confirm my kill. The boy simply stared back at her, not even bothering to twitch an eyebrow.
お姉さんの右足は確か髪切った方だ。それで首を狙ったのはすごいよね。女の人は本能的に自分の体をかばうものだって瞳子さんは言ってたのに。けど残念、せっかくの勇気も無駄でした。僕の体毛の質はこの姿でも変わらない。産毛だけでもお姉さんの蹴りを受け止めることはできる。
The only one hurt between the two was Urko. The leg she had lodged in his neck was totally numb, like it had been chopped clean off of her headset.
それに少しだけ迷いがあったな。くっつけたばっかりの足だからかばったでしょ。人間が僕の相手をするならそんなこと気にしちゃいけないのに。ああ、でも。
The boy smiled, basking in Urko's shocking awe. She could not free her leg. No doubt as soon as she regained her footing, he would tear her stomach open.
どっちにしろミンチだから気にしても仕方がないよね。ほら、もったいない。せっかく治ったばかりなのに。
Urko wasn't sure, but it felt like he had sunk his finger into the lash out of her right leg. He was right about her leg. She had barely had any feeling in it. It had been completely paralyzed after the last attack, and it was now back in the same horrendous state. Except this time, instead of being torn to pieces, it had been crushed to the bone. Her leg might have been numb, but just the look of it was enough to horrify her. The way it was crumpled, all the blood. Any normal person would have died from shock. I was thinking about someone else. I considered how cruel magic crest could be.
あれ、まだ目が死んでない。あんまり苦しめたくないんだけど。頑丈なのも考えものだよ。
Was hat Nasu eigentlich mit Horror-Lollis und Horror-Shotters? The boy thrust his hand out at Urko's chest. Her conscience flickered from his sudden pain of a stake. No, a child's fist piercing her torso. The scenery flew by. She soared through the air like a ragdoll tossed away by a bored child. Just like Alice a moment ago, she tumbled through the air and hit the ground hard. Her right leg was crushed. Her chest caved in. It was as if her heart had been scooped out of her chest. Each gasp of breath left her wanting more. Was it like this to see stars? The terrifying part was the pain. It never let up. Desperately trying to suck in oxygen, she could only still feel his thirst. Leisurely, the boy strode across the snow toward Aoku's broken body. His dead rogue tongue gliding over his lips. He stared at his prey, who was desperately trying to breathe, his eyes filled with glee. Aoku bit down the temptation to drift away, even though she could find no reason to fight on. The snow had broken her fall slightly, but her death was all but certain. The first signs cracked in her crest, her mangled leg up, made sure of that. Even though she knew she was a broken mess, her magic chest frankly worked to rescue Kid to her heart, but why? The sight of Toko's in the distance was the only thing that kept her conscious. Her sister looked surprised for some reason, like she was witnessing some strange phenomenon that wasn't like her. Wondering what it was, Oko tried to stay conscious. So she of a sign. Phoebe tried to raise her head. She looked to where Toko was staring. Why she looked like that when she was so close to victory? His heart was beating faster than normal. The fragment and disturbing image kept returning, and he desperately pushed them to the back of his mind. They were thoughts that shook his resolve. He did his best to file them away in the unseen corner of his consciousness. Right now he could only focus on controlling his breathing and his exertion. Just stay calm and repeat to himself. He had not stopped for a second since leaving the church, even without giving a thought to what he would do next. So many traffic lights, so many people. It was Christmas, there was no way he would find a taxi. Waiting for one was not an option, it was why he had put his trust in his legs. He dashed through the city streets. He had to find a shorter route than last night. His heart was ready to jump out of his chest, pounding like a hammer against a firebell. He had no intention of giving up, but he could not seem to calm himself down. In his precautious conscience, even surrender seemed too great of an effort to spare. Visions of horrible outcomes flashed through his mind. No, calm, he needed to stay calm. That was his only weapon. He was painfully aware he was powerless. The best thing he could do was to keep his head on straight. While he was wrangled with his mind, his pulse seemed to quicken with every step. The forest was faintly lit by the moon. There was more than enough on such a bare mountain. He followed the 2 steps of footprints. Ahead lay a situation he had nothing to do with, just like the amusement park. Even if you go there, there's nothing you can do for them. The only effects are vanishing words. It was to hasten his pace. He pushed the ground with his legs even harder, trying to leave his step down in the kicked up snow behind him. At first he was powerless. The pain in his chest told him so. At best he would be useless, and at worst he was a liability. He reached the binding spell placed on him at the church. It did not matter. His body told him he would regret being torn to pieces, less than if he did nothing. Not once did his legs fall as he ran through the woods. Now it felt as tough as his heart could at any moment. His weakness screamed at him from within, just like back in the amusement park. was beyond reason or circumstances now. Ultimately, I just wanted to help her. It was all hell. This was all he really desired. His heart pounded with vigor. He ran through the dark, wintry forest. Only one thing gnawed at his mind. Not concern for the girls, nor anger to what took her. The red rose bursting from forth her lips, screamed of agony like childbirth. The harsh reality of something beautiful dying. The sniper was tenderous. Never again, never ever again did he want to see something like that again, if he couldn't help it. Just ahead was the forest clearing. The moonlight shone on the old school building like a spotlight. Once again, those thoughts of crept back. He could not bear seeing something like that again. That's why he ran. But if he had to face it a second time, how could he stay calm? With trembling word, he arrived at the clearing. Somehow his frantic breathing, his rising and lowering shoulders stopped. No exhaustion, no inertia, just blankness. Like his mind was frozen in time. This was the second time he felt like this. But Lucia, this is this for the first time. The pathetic whining of the last few weeks. The doubts clouding in his mind, they were all gone. Displaced entirely from his mind by an even stronger emotion. His heart pounded with a forceful sledgehammer. It was a primal sound loud enough to bring him to his senses. So she stepped into the clearing, letting out a deep but steady exhale. Also, his eyes were locked with the blonde-haired boys. His concentration was focused inward. Be calm. Be calm. Every fiber of his being worked to control his breathing. The clearing told the story of Oko and Alice's crushing defeat. Ko was lying face up in the snow, her right leg bright red and crushed at the tide. Her eyes were gazed over, but Sushiro could tell she was still bravely fighting. Judging by the spluttering, she had taken a hard blow to her chest or back. Sushiro deducted it was mostly like both. Alice's injury seemed less serious than Oko's, but she lay motionless on the ground nevertheless. She was lying across from Oko, face down in the snow, arms out in front of, as through pushing herself up was too painful. Before the old school building stood the figure of the mage he had seen before. Paying her no mind, Sushiro began to walk forward. Feeling calmer since arriving at the clearing, he advanced toward Oko. Toko did nothing to stop him. No one noticed, but the faintest look on worry flickered in her eyes.
お兄さんもその人たちの仲間?
The child member spoke amicably, confident in his victory, and perhaps also eyeing up a new meal. So she ignored him and kept walking toward Oko. The complete disregard wiped the smile from the boy's face. Still, Sushiro carried on the beast's feelings were the last thing on his mind. Once he reached Oko, he looked down at her, pain expression on his face. Strangely, was at a loss for words. After a slight hesitation, all he could manage was to say was,
なってないぞ、生徒会長。行く時ぐらい声をかけるものだろう。
His offered remark was self-scolding and half affectionate.
このバカ。
Despite the pain in her stomach, Oko was able to throw an insult in his face.
安心した。余裕あるじゃないか、青崎。
His voice brightened, as if buying her bravado. The truth was that she barely had the strength to live. Despite that, Sushiro looked like he wanted to respond in his usual way. Said like, "See, Aosaki, you're too tough to die, even if someone kills you."
あんたかな。
安心した。余裕あるじゃないか、青崎。
So, danke. Ich wollte die Screenshot kurz. Typisch fällt bei mir. As soon as she tried to speak, she ran out of breath. So Shiro had heard her loud and clear this time. He might have looked absent-minded, but he knew exactly how dangerous the situation was. He knew because his carefully sounding words did not match his expression's face.
何のつもりで。
Before she could say doing, she caught painfully. So Shiro pressed his finger to his lips and nodded. Oh, he could not quite believe it, but it looked like those Shiro had gestured to not speak.
だってほら、状況はあの時と一緒だ。君がやられたら、次はこっちの番なんだろう。だからまあ何もできないのもあの時と変わってはいないんだけど。
Oki did not know what to say. She could only look up at him, amazed and awed. The werewolf stared at them, visibly frustrated. After all, he believed himself to be the noblest of all creatures. Ignoring him was treason, punishable by death. Had Toko not been there, he would have stuck his teeth into Sochiro's neck by now. He was sure he'd been imitating enough. However, his prey did not show any sense of fear. It was hard to imagine, but maybe, just maybe, this guy did not view him as a threat.
まあ誰でもいいんだけど、筋張った肉は歯ごたえがあっていいし、先にそのお兄さんから始めても構わないよね。
The boy wolf called out once again. Still not responding, Sushiro raised his hand to his nose. Cool, calm, and collected. Paying no mind to the boy, yet keeping an eye on him.
匂うな。
ん？
Everyone present was confused. No one seemed to be able to smell anything but him.
へえ、何が匂うっていうのかな。鬼。
Bio's voice retained his usual arrogance, but was tinged with impatience. The boy was unable to hide his irritation at being ignored. Finally, Toshiro turned to face the boy just a short distance from him.
品のない肉の匂いがする。これだから犬は嫌いなんだ。
His voice was filled with disgust and contempt. Toshiro was mainly speaking to himself, but the werewolf boy had never felt so insulted, even if that was not Toshiro's intent at all. In a moment, the wind pickled up, perhaps seeing a change in the werewolf's mood. A fairy gale whipped around, carving patterns in the snow.
ソジロ。
Sensing he was about to be killed, Oki desperately tried to move, but her broken body would not respond. After hearing Sushiro's insult, Alice was unsuccessfully struggling to get her to her feet too. In complete contrast, Sushiro stood there, firmly and unfazed. The little blood boy's well of patience had run dry.
そうか。要するに、僕が子供だからって舐めてるんだね。お兄さんは。
time playing human was over, and Rachel Proy transformed. He grew larger and larger, golden fur sprouting his pale flesh. His mouth grew razor-sharp fangs and sank-through claws. Drawing from the measuring energy in the air, he transformed into a preternatural beast, a wolf in the shape of a human.
重化の許しは出していないぞベオ
To yelled at him, but the werewolf did not respond. They only have deep breaths of hot air.
バカな
That was also she could say in response to the boy's metamorphosis. Such as it was the stuff of nightmares. What was worse, the beast now towered above him. It was enough to make anybody question reality itself. Seeing his prey reaction satisfied, the werewolf and his few small twists into satisfying grin. It was strange more in the sky, but the meat was meat. However, the beast's arrogance was short-lived. The prey breathed a side explanation before speaking.
それじゃあ本当に犬そのものじゃないか
You could hear a pin drop even in the snow. Orc and Alice were all dumbfounded. Were they really seeing a human not just stare a werewolf down, but insult it to his face? They simply could not believe it. It was too late. Any trace of wolf's pride or dignity faded away. The onlookers finally realized that the wolf was serious.
ベオ殺すな
But Tosh's commands fell on deaf ears. The wolf prepared to lung his emerald eyes fixated on Sushi not 30 feet from him. A mere 30 feet, a half a second was all he needed. Another half second to bring his claw down and slice his prey from the head to toe.
死んだよお前
A roar of joyous, unbridled fury echoed far and wide. It was the only warning the werewolf gave as it exploded toward Sojiro. 1 second, a golden step, forth a furious gust, too fast for the blow. In the face of unworthy speed, there was only one thing to do. Sojiro stepped forward, a silent shadow opposite the beastly silhouette of becoming werewolf. He needed exactly 3 paces. He bet his entire life on around 3 feet of distance. In the blink of an eye, death would appear upon him. Yet he did not show the slightest indication. He intended to avoid the lunging bear mouth. The wolf's forelegs slammed into the ground with earth-shaking fury. His back muscle tensed up so much he seemed to barely contain in his frame as he swept a raised paw downward. Sujiro's small step nearly evaded his claws, but he had a different motive. He was nearly positioning himself for the next move. His intention was never to avoid anything. From the beginning, his mind was focused on one thing. One point to aim for. One mind. One breath. He picked the perfect opening, the wolf's torso. The precise microsecond between contraction and relaxation. That one point alone was the crack in the dam of life. He punched the werewolf in his chest with his feeble human strength. There was a dull thud and a burst of blood. The twisted flesh and gore were all Sojiro's own. The werewolf's raised claw convulsed. From the instant impact, the beast boy was the first to collapse, dead in spirit. There was a moment of utter incomprehension. The wolf opened his jaws to try and pull air into his lungs, gasping when he toppled forward. His leather figure slipped around his flank. Das braucht gar kein Anime! The next blow pierced him like a spear. Ignoring the mangled left arm, the shoulder whirled around and drove his right elbow into collapsing over his back. There was another muffled impact. The second strike penetrated the exact same spot the first strike had, crushing the beast's heart. This time the blood flew into the air, belonging to the gasping wolf. Ha! The werewolf fell on the ground, choking his own blood. He did not get up. He showed no sign of life. It was over. There was no remorse, no hesitation in the brief act of violence. The perfect furious golden beast lay still. Felled in a mere 3 seconds. No sane person would have bet on this outcome. His breath calmed, the victor stood over the fallen behemoth's body.
なんで僕
Even as the beast lay crumbling in the snow, he could not grasp what had happened. His heart had ruptured, cutting the blood flow to his body and brain, leaving him helpless. That much he knew. If he were a normal creature, he would be dead. As it was, this was traveling inconvenience. Once his heart was repaired, the body would heal as well. It was not as the boy, as he had been struck by measures exceeding his own muscular nature. This was little different from a grazed knee. Which is what was so strange. Your heart does not stop from a grazed knee.
思い出さないと
The werewolf frantically scratched his memory. He managed to remember right up until the moment he raised his claws. Machte einen Fehler. Hat einfach so Giro herausgefordert. But when he had come after that, given the right transformation, he knew he could withstand even a cannon blast. How had a punny human dropped him? Wait. Before that, he had to figure out exactly what this opening did to him. The moment he got in close, he had felt a small impact. The attack was circular that probably only affected his heart. Ridiculous. Even if that was possible, there was no way that alone could stop a werewolf's heart. In the end, no matter how much he thought about it, nothing added up. The answer was out of reach for a werewolf with no knowledge of being backed into a corner, let alone the limits of human skill. Only one thing was certain. He had lost. He tried to piece together the sequence of events. The explosion in his chest, the flash of white. After that, he was falling over. He took another blow to his back. There was one thing that disturbed his heart.
ふざけてるそんなことで僕
Could lose? Indeed. It was physically impossible. The boy gnashed his teeth and tensed his body in indignation in this unfair condition.
そうだこんなのは嘘だ同族でだって僕を任せる奴はいなかったこんな痛みもこんな事態も全部嘘だ不合理に狂っているだってこの僕が他の生き物に負けるはずが
Who will win? Ein unsterblicher Werwolf, geschaffen von Gaia Hexe selbst, oder ein einfacher Mensch? Enough thinking. He was ready. From the ground he glared his enemy to his side.
負けるはず
The very next moment, an unknown type of pain crossed up down his spine. It had eyes. Cold eyes, staring, piercing, colorless. The moon looked more alive. Its arms were broken. Its inhumanly powerful attack had banished them beyond recognition. It was a pain. It would feel cried out, but it was silent. Was it ever alive? Those dead eyes. He was seen eyes like this before. Those eyes without hatred, without joy, without any feeling behind them at all. It was a mindless insect. The werewolf stood on end. What was the creeping chill crawling up his spine? Having never experienced fear, the werewolf did not know what had become of him. The spine counter slashed against other mystics. It had been a human that broke him. He knew beasts even larger than himself. He knew legendary creatures like himself. He did not know this. He would never met, much less imagined, a human-sized bug. This chill down the werewolf's spine was vicious. It threatened to split him in two. If he moved even an inch, it would crush his scalp underfoot. In spite of despair gripping him, the boy paradoxically sensed that his opponent would not move at all. This human would exhibit no further violence. It was a creature. No, a stone that held no animal instincts. It masqueraded as a human. The contradiction granted against his heart, his values, a fatal pain born of an unknown emotion. Fear. It was just grating. It was like many needles, slowly digging into his heart. This had been his first taste of doubt of reality. Such contradictions existed in the world after all. There were rationalities and questions you did not want to hear the answers to. The suppressed pain suddenly flowed through his body like a raging river. This was also a first. Until now he had always been able to control pain. He had never known what it was like to tremble. An element might have been felt sorry for him if it were here to watch. How sad, born complete, yet lost the lunacy of the human world. His heart had fully regenerated. Howling mental agony, the beast clutched his own trembling body. Those eyes, those human eyes looking straight through him. And then the boy realized the only reason he was still alive. Even without both arms broken, the human could have finished him off with his legs. But it mattered not, because his opponent was giving him a taste of his own medicine. This was the revenge for trying to kill him. This was revenge for the wounds he inflicted on the girls. The absurdity of it all made his throat lighten. His breathing was frenetic. This human had no sense of self. He had no concern for his own safety when it stood between him and the girls. There must be why it had no hate or fear or perhaps even intent to kill him. Indeed, the fact he was still alive had nothing to do with the human will. The fight was a machine-like, so was his judgment. An eye for an eye and nothing more. If the werewolf had killed one of the girls, this exchange would have ended indifferently. He shuddered at the thought. He had never entertained such possibility. He had never had been to, because it was supposed to be the one exception to that rule. Irony kicked him hard into the gut. Now by the mystic, nothing immune initially from decay. The boy finally understood the obvious law of the world, or rather he had been taught. Those eyes would not stop staring down at him. Retribution was an universal law. He was now painfully aware of the fact. And yet, the one who brought from to this idea was this human. The pain of defeat, the pain in his heart, the pain of comprehending the incomprehensible. Pain, pain, pain! The impossible of it all had shattered this perfect world. It ate him, consumed every fiber of his being. The dub made his head spin. It was too much. Humans were impossible to understand.
殺されてた殺されてた殺されてた
He had not been made to face the death of another, but his own. Unable to cope, he reverted to his human form. Quietly, he shivered like a frightened child in a mother's lap. Still lying in the snow, Oko choked on her words, unable to entirely comprehend what had unfolded.
宗十郎あんた
She could not hide the trembling in her voice. Speaking his usual way, so she naturally turned toward her.
何って今自分が何をしたか分かってんの
She shouted angrily as thought he had done something wrong. So she looked surprised, wondering what on earth he had done to upset her. He now just gazed back to the wolf boy, making his brow in dismay, so she finally realized what Aoko was referring to.
心外だな。青崎は分かってると思ってた。
He looked at his disappointment.
分かってるって何をよ
Feeling slightly affronted, Aoko responded coldly. So she sighed.
山じゃ熊はそう珍しいものじゃない。以前確かに言ったじゃないか。
Huh? Aoko's jaw dropped. It took a moment to process what he just said. She recalled some meaningless conversation over from who knows when.
君、もしかして俺をバカにしているのか？まったく。なんで熊を倒すためなんかに修行しなくちゃいけないんだ。
Yes, now she thought about it. They had spoken about that. He would mention being familiar with large beasts. Und das rettet ihr Leben. And she could not deny that she had heard him utter some anarchistic nonsense about training to deal with them. Which meant was used to dealing with animals larger than himself. If he had lived the sort of life that involved run-ins with wild beasts, then a man wolf might only have been surprising but not particularly frightening. Oko hung her head. After all this time, who was it? It really made no sense.
参ったわ。あなたの勝ちよ、宗十郎。
It was hard to tell whether she spoke in admiration or expiration. Either way, she slouched in the snow. Oko spoke quietly enough to only she could hear her words. Token, on the other hand, understood exactly what had transpired. Bio lay fallen, now just a sobbing boy. And for another boy stood over him with two shattered arms. Near fatally wounded, Oko and Alice still could not stand, but had recovered enough to breathe. As for Toko, she had only a few tricks up her sleeve, maybe 3 or 4 more wounds at best. The magic crest on her back were unusable. Hat mir die Wange gebissen. She could use the remaining dimensional energy from the field imprisoning her grandfather, but that would be stupid. If she released her grandfather, she would lose ownership of the sacred ground. Failing to defeat Oko and Alice now would mean starting over from square one, and she could not afford that. The sibling rivalry had to end. Toko had scrambled everything on the surprise attack. Using she was still at Naosaki to defend Misaki's defenses. For 3 years she had labored, selling her work for the association. And she'd used 20 years worth of hair to mobilize an army of familiars. It was now or never.
だが私は失敗した。
She had overestimated the werewolf's power. It should have been enough. Against magic alone, Beowulf by himself would have been enough to ensure complete victory. But things did not always go according to plan. Beowulf's incredible strength was conditional. She knew he was not infallible, so why hadn't she prepared a contingency plan? Her heart as cold as ice took a stance as Sushiro who stood tall. His arms were hideous mess. The arm he used to strike Beowulf head on barely even resembled an arm. His bones were bent out of shape, his muscles were torn to shreds. To say his arm was simply broken would be a gross understatement. Streaks of crimson ran down his other arm on the white snow. The elbows drove Beowulf's back was already shattered, and his muscles and tendrils torn up to his shoulder. Trying to preserve his arms, he doubted whether he would be able to use them again. Worse than his arms were his left leg, and no doubt his internal organs too. He had used the leg to take the full brunt of Beowulf's charge. At a glance, it took a fine, but it was just as useless hunk of meat attached to his torso. His insides were worse, supporting the weight of Beowulf had ruptured his spine, caused widespread internal bleeding. Basically, he was a dead man standing. Erinnere mich irgendwie an Shiro am Ende von Heaven's Feel. A bird with clipped wings. Living like that would be not living at all. Could barely stand, let alone fight again. In contrast, the collapsed werewolf was unscathed. Only once he had caught up blood. The majority of the pool of red on the snow was Sojiro's. A crimson tapestry telling the story of a boy who stood strong and defeated a werewolf.
当然だ。衝撃には反動が伴う。拳を振るうのなら相応の負担がある。まして相手は人狼。走ってくる鉄の壁を真っ向から殴るようなものだ。それを。
Perhaps you know what would happen. Animals typically limit their strength in order to protect their body. Compensating for physical weakness with intellect and technique was humanity's forte, and that clash has shown humans at their very best, and yet it had also been beyond human. He had attacked without concern for his own safety, without self-preservation in mind. He could go beyond human capability, enough to strike enough the steel-like fur of a legendary werewolf. But who would have thought that a beast able to withstand a shot from a tank would be felled by a mere human?
違う。ためらうことなく殴りつけたから壊れたのではない。初めからあれは壊すことを前提にしていたな。
He sacrificed his entire body to destroy Beowulf's heart. Took a further chill come over as he bent over in her head what had transpired. It should have been a nightmarish scene, but she was captivated by the supreme display of physical rationality. From the outside, looking in, she witnessed not an incident, but an irrational consequence. In that instant, the boy had put his entire being into piercing Beowulf's chest. As soon as he laid eyes on Urquhart Alice, he had committed himself fully to the task. He seized Beowulf up synchronized from his breathing, found his weak point, and calculated the exact position, timing, and distance he would need to hold his ground. He knew that he had to do it to win, and he did it with everything he had. It had nothing to do with instinct. A wild creature would not have tried to beat something it could not. Only a human would risk his life when faced with the impossible. That contradiction fed his attack. He twisted his body from his heel to his neck to focus his energy. If Beowulf had simply tried to run Soichiro down, the werewolf would probably have won. But the beast wanted to rip him to shreds. Or rather, he was baited into doing so. After Beowulf charged when he planted his feet, he raised his claw and swung it downward, putting himself off balance. His pulse was erratic, his movement wild at the moment he was vulnerable. That was when Tsushiro made his move. The beast had overwhelming power, but it was sloppy. Worse, the humans concentrated all of the mega power to a single point. That was how humans shifted the balance in his favor. The follow-up elbow attack would rupture Beo's heart. It was a graceless second strike. A sloppy blow, no different from Beo's. The elbow was only able to prevent the beast's golden fury because of the first attack to his chest.
あの時点でベオは丸裸にされていた。無敵の人狼がその機能の一切を休止させられた。つまり
The strike was not meant to break, but to disable. All living creatures had weaknesses. No matter how strong the creature it had weak points at weak moments. Not just physically, but mentally too. At times when they aren't in the best shape. Unable to focus or find motivation. Sickness or lack of sleep. Food, for example, and can cause the body's rhythm to go out of sync. For a variety of reasons, intelligent beings risking losing their ability to function properly. Legendary beasts were no exception.
弱点、欠点をつく魔術なら知っているが、すべてを投げ打って弱点を生むとはな。
The boy's strike to the heart was not an attempt to kill Beo. It was designed to create a weakness in something that had none. The elbow attack took advantage of the break in Beo's invulnerability.
加えて、笑えることに不意打ちですらない。
Ich will Sojiro als Servant.
ベオの神経の伝達速度なら、毒が当たった瞬間に感知し対応できる。だが、そもそもそれを毒と認識できなければ、毒ではないものが毒になるなんて落とし穴を誰が教えてやれるものか。
She was frustrated to say at least. The boy was totally committed, utterly selfless. He bet his life on that single moment without expecting a single thing in return. The boy had acquired a special experience and skill to do so. It was not a miracle of luck, nor a miracle of passion. It was not talent, tenacity, or hatred. Without constant intense training, no one could destroy their own body on a whim like that.
子供には相手が悪かったようね。
Seeing Beo covered in snow, Toku was disappointed in her own lack of foresight. She had used him for his talent alone, ignoring his inexperience. If Beo was not a child, his life experience might have given him the strength to bounce back and was sure after regenerating.
ベオを責めるべきか、それとも君を評価すべきなのか。
Toku finally lifted her hand. Nobody noticed. Staying far away, the boy standing there looked like a hunter from a picture book. Servus, Timothy. Du kommst immer dann, wenn die coolen Dinge vorbei sind, oder? Gerade hat Sojiro, ein einfacher Mensch, einfach so einen Werwolf besiegt. Im 1 vs 1. Wo 2 Hexen dran gescheitert sind. He had a slender build, but that was likely because he intentionally shed any excess. Given what he just witnessed, his cluelessness had to be part of an act in the act of a hunter. As he thought to herself, she suddenly remembered the first thing that crossed her mind, the first time they spoke.
そうだったな。だが、それは忘れていたかったよ、宗十郎君。
Und es gab ein Matchbattle between Aoko und Toku. No sooner had she felt a slighter of resentment, she returned to her unshakable resolve. She was raised as a higher to Aristaki household, taught never to question the morality of her actions. That was why, even now, she knew exactly what she had to do.
でもよかった。
So she muttered, unmoving perhaps because of the pain in his broken arms. He did not look at Aoko. Instead, his gaze was focused on Alice, who was lying prone in some way away. Aoko thought he looked lonely.
よかったって何がよ。
she asks, spurring him on. They were mere steps from each other, close enough to touch hands. The quiet voice carried in the stillness.
私たちが無事だったからなんて言ったら怒るわよ。
He was not joking, so she turned away from her, slightly shaking his head.
口にするのは3度目だけど、青崎の心配はしていないんだ。いや、さっきはちょっと意識が飛んだようなんだけど。
He said as an embarrassing smile crossed his face. The first time he outright fainted, but the second time his passion pushed from the dizziness and his nose to the other side. He just calmly did what he could, as best as he could. Nevertheless, no matter how calm he tried to be, deep within festered a very real rage.
じゃあ何が良かったの、宗十郎。
Roku's voice with a slight tinge of annoyance, so she responded.
だって、ようやく約束が守れた。そっちだけが約束を守ってるのに、こっちは果たせなかっただろう。それがずっと気になっていたんだ。その機会があって、本当に。
Aww. His relief expression itself was a small but heartfelt smile. Warte, gleich kann er aber die Bilder zeigen von den epischen Kampf zwischen Toko, Aoko und Soichiro, dem Werwolf. Weil es gibt ja Gott sei Dank extra CG-Mode. Okay. Anscheinend stellt die Bilder erst nach dem Kapitel frei. Schade. Aber bis Archiv schauen, mal schauen, wie weit wir schon sind. Immer noch im ersten Kapitel. Oder im zweiten. Dann machen wir weiter. Oculist astonished. For a moment she could not recall what promise Soichiro was talking about. But she remembered that she was talking about what she had told him all the time ago in the amusement park. Her mind went blank.
あいつをやっつけるのに協力したら、俺のことは見逃してくれる？
He promised to deal, but in the end he hadn't been of any use. It must have been eating away at him this entire time. Ah, the Puppenkampf! Okay, considered the agreement binding, but only for herself.
あんなどうでもいいことを。
She muttered in disbelief, so she had a nod in affirmative of her tiny
約
voice.
束は自分のために果たすものだって教えてくれたのは青崎だ。だから君が守っている限り俺も守らないといけない。はあ、ずっと俺は
As if listening to her confession, Oko stayed silent. She could not find the words to say anyway. So she proved ever but the enigma, taking such a trivial promise so seriously and speaking senselessly about something so basic. She could not wrap her head. Oh, Servus, Omoroi, also der Name kommt bekannt vor. Und du hast auch die geilsten Stellen verpasst gerade. Ich muss mal kurz googeln, was Omoroi ist. Da kann ich sagen, ob ich es kenne. Nein, ich kenn's nicht. Schau, ich dachte etwas aus, was ich spielen würde. Sorry. She could not wrap her head around how he had beaten the werewolf, but his personality, that was true a mystery. Glückwunsch! It was no use trying to figure that out. To Aosaki, he was a little wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a conundrum.
それじゃあ借りは返したから帳尻はゼロだ。
Ich bin immer noch überlegen, was er nächstes treiben soll.
これで貸し借りはなしだぞ、青崎。
Wenn ich mit dem hier fertig bin, weil wir sind jetzt schon im vorletzten Kapitel. So schön says lightly. Perhaps attempting to break the silence. Normally this would have passed by her, but she saw his kindness for what it was.
貸しがついたのはこっちの方よ。これじゃどうやって返していいかわからないじゃない。
So should not a happy agreement.
それより青崎の足。
Da schaut er nicht nach etwas aus, was ich mögen würde, sorry.
もしかしてもう立てるのか？
She shot him a stubborn look as to say, well, you, obviously. Ever amazed by her grit, he offered her his right hand. Despite being broken at the elbow, Chaoko looked as sturdy as ever. Yep, er hat gerade gegen einen Werwolf gekämpft. Und hat ihn mit 2 Schlägen besiegt. Aber die beiden Schläge haben seinen Ellbogen und seinen rechten Arm komplett gebrochen. By all appearance, it was beyond recovery and would be for the rest of his life. Even so, he seemed able to ignore the pain for her sake.
ほんと、あんたってバカ。
She uttered under his breath, looking up at him. As much as she hated to admit, she would not refuse his hand. Deciding herself, she reached out to Sojiro. But the hand never reached his. A small bell chimed. A line of wind whipped through the air. It cut through the waist, like a guillotine. Pieces began to fall. What were those things dropping before her eyes? Uncle could not remember who they belonged to.
そちろ。
That used to be his name, right? The name of whoever lay in the red snow in front of her. His face now rested on the ground beneath her chin. The smell of viscera assaulted her nostrils. A river of blood flowed from what he used to be his stomach. It happened so fast. Nein, war ich bisher noch nie. Too fast for her mind to process the fact. Her only solace was he probably did not suffer. How could she think that so calmly, especially after she had witnessed her blood boiled at her own stupidity? Which begged the question, how should they treat the one who did the things? She had used all her anger on herself. She had none left to give anyone else, but this hatred, with hers and hers alone. Her problem was this: she mastered her emotions from the thought of danger. She was not sure, but the task of hunting them down made her smile unconsciously in anticipation. Aoko turned to the old school building, to where Tuko was standing with her arm out in front of her. She had used the same rune of measure used against Aoko and Alice, except she had no magic crests. Toko's amber eyes were narrowed, staring intensely at the fallen corpse. As to what she might have been feeling, Aoko could not care less. Even if Toko felt regret, Aoko would never forgive her, for as long as she drew breath.
やはり君からこうしておくべきだったな。
Toko was not speaking to Aoko, but to the dead body. There was no response. No close of breath. Coming to terms that he was truly dead, Aoko pushed herself up to her feet.
案外無様ね。
Facing her sister in the distance, Aoko spoke hoarsely.
でも正しい選択だわ。これで勝負はやり直しだもの。
She turned away from Soshiro and stared at Aoko. They stood far apart. Further apart than their position made them seem. Though there was nothing left to say, the two of them exchanged words with respect to what affected their one sisters.
魔術刻印という私の切り札はこの通りで、人狼というカードもお前の切り札の前に敗れ去ったが、そちらも刻印を使い切り、彼も今息絶えた。互いに決定打はなくなったわけだ。
そうね、私も甘かった。人狼が再起不能になった時点で、あなたが敗北を認めたなんて勝手に思い上がるんだから、本来ならそうなるんだけど、あなたがそんなに諦めがいいのなら、この町に戻ってきはしないものね。
本当に甘かった。
It was clear to Toko that Aok was trying to suppress her emotions. Aok was right through. Her sister counted on Beowulf to succeed. As mage, no matter what cards Aok and Alice set in their hands, they were helpless against the werewolf. But then she should have shown up and Toko couldn't win, as long as he was around. Unfortunately, though he had stopped the werewolf, he had been defenseless against the mage. So he had to kill him. She had to kill him. With Soshiro out of the way, no one could hold Beo back. It would take time for him to recover, but as long as his wounds were only mental, they could be overcome. Alice and Oko could try to attack again before they recovered, but Alice was being kept in check by the poison, so Oko still had the advantage. Stalemate, still. The battle would drag on. Unless Oko were to use it. Die fünfte Magie! Powdery snow began to whirl around. The air around her veiled. It was makeshift that had rendered all that was mystical. The gate to miracles beyond human comprehension, ready to show itself.
やる気のようね、青子。
Took at least the crest of maintaining the fields. With that, the grandfather would be freed, and the bearers around Misaki would be restored. Which was not what Toko wanted, but it was that of fortified her life. The crest at her disposal were no twice as powerful as her sisters. Oko gazed at the new threat, with her eyes half closed. None of this was her concern. Far removed from the situation, she was searching for something hidden deep inside herself, desperate to reach it. There it was, an odd feeling like picking up algae. It was not a fire of emotion, it was not solid nor great. It must have been meant by rising to the ocean. Updawning through itself, Oak held on that feeling as she stared at her enemy.
いいわよ、トウコ。
She spoke softly, yet more loudly than a scream.
お望み通り、本当の魔法を見せてあげる。
Focusing her power to the dim crest on her right arm, she waved the words together. A single incantation. A final heartfelt farewell. A brilliant blue-colored magic, taking the time back to when she, a certain someone, had been blessed. To put it simply, magic is human wisdom. It is the world as we know it. Magic is the regularity that exists beyond other of those. At the beginning, the first changed all. Next, the second recognized many. In answer, the third showed the future. Tethered, the fourth concealed itself. And the final fifth had long since lost its significance. Someone once said that it only ended at the third. Magic of the study of history. Feast of our mankind in life ability to the planet. But true magic is providence of a god beyond the heavens. Why do those who stand on the earth extol the virtues of miracles beyond humankind and the planet? This was an undeniable sin. Magic was the enemy of humanity. That is why. Those who obtain new magic are killed by the Red Shadow.
聞け万物の霊長
Orc's voice resonated through the entire above the winter skies. The air began to fracture, turning the scenery to broken glasses. Toko wondered whether she should fight or flee. She decided to try and keep her feet, but the object of her obsession for so many years was right in front of her. Initially was slipping from her grasp. Both of their fates were now uncertain. Toko had an overwhelming advantage when it comes to crests and Tyrann. When it came to true magic, however, if the Osaka magic was anything like Aoko Kunoichi's fatal monsters, then the mage strength was not a part of the equation. At this point it was Toko against magic itself, and there was no winning against truth. Transcendence and idiosyncrasy of true magic rendered things like makeshift irrelevant.
だが
Toko stared at her sister, wondering if she could actually use it. Her proclamation lacked conviction. She had raised her voice, but it was out of the spleen. It had not been the arrogant conviction to sacrifice someone else for her own Jane. Having been chosen to inherit it, Toko could not imagine what magic her sister was. Only that it was force violent enough to change the world. No human mind could withstand the audacity required to make an enemy of the world itself. Especially not someone as insensitive as a sister. The power of magic would surely cripple her. Feeling Toko's eyes on her, I could doubt herself. She could not help but hesitate. Terror gripped her heart tighter.
でもだからって
She would not run away forever. Her hesitation and terror meant she would never forgive herself for stopping now. Closing her eyes, she pushed herself into the final stage. Time stopped like a light being switched off. She submerged herself into her own darkness. Everything froze, only she moved. Everything around her disappeared as she passed a limitless stream of stars. And as soon as she did, she wanted to disappear into the empty thoughtless place she arrived in without any answers. Not again. The red shadow will surely come this time. Suddenly, I saw a new memory. Possibly I used another to make the trade for. I heard a family, yet familiar, yet new sound. I wish for nothing. I seek nothing. Only to fuse with the consciousness that hurtles backward in the time to zero. The sound, the bitter, sad, meaningless pulls me by my hair, but I have to resist. The red ghost was always going to be my biggest hurdle. I must forget the value of life. I must forget dignity of death. The sound persists. It got nothing to do with this journey. There is just external distraction. And yet I think I finally understood. I knew what noise had been making me so uneasy. What the? The uneasy whispers were directed at me. Or perhaps the natural were perplexed. But a quiet soul listening to it. It glares at me, its eyes full of hatred. How could I be so unprepared? Don't tell me. You can't be serious. You're going to turn me into your prey for that? That is your everything. You have nothing else. The effect of rewinding, the decision to never say never. His prime, his meaningless life. She negated it. She used her superior power to negate the sound which was an absolute rule to him. Just brushed it aside like it was a cobweb. The sound disappeared. A new one replaced it. I wish for nothing. I want nothing. A pure obedient heart. That's why you get nothing. A life of falsehood led by affirmation. This is ridiculous. My legs move for the future, but they stop. Change of plans. I'm taking a different path. Nothing changed. It just something has made me real mad. How can I put it? You call this the past, you idiot? If I don't complain about something to someone, I'll explode. Even if it's just to the voice, or to the one who hears it, or the part of me who just stays quiet and watches, or the one who did harm to him. With no answer, I open my eyes. I declare. Ugliest everything shit there raked up. As far what was there, or what she saw she could not remember. All she held on to was the fury that burned in her heart. Pushed on by something she did not know, what should open the door to magic. The change was extraordinary. Beneath her, the snow vanished, replaced by a small patch of lush, green grass. The ground had never existed under the frozen blanket. It had been rewritten into a new landscape. The very romantic rejected her, as the world itself was fighting back. The electrical discharge lashed her body. This miracle threatened to destroy the world. The world had to protect itself. It moved to expunk her. Pain scorched her every cell, trying to tear away her consciousness. But she did not falter. All this pain and this loneliness was to take her to the heart root. Ever since, in hurting through magic, she had suffered this torture time and time again. She contended against the voiceless protest of the cosmos. The burning gulf she retains and nerves with flames. And then light. She finally understood. She remembers why she came back and what she wanted to scream. By the name Blue, I speak for order. Hear me! A censoring voice told her to stop. As the ashes of oblivion, her hand touched the true form of magic. The starting that shadow was there, telling her it was no use. So much doubt, so much fear. But such things meant nothing to her, to me. I don't care about the magician's obligations or the destruction of mankind. I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. I only have one reason for doing anything right now. I trust God. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I just want to save him.
No, say.
All is not sane, yet all shall be right. A blue whirlwind whisked upon her. Casting aside the darkness sorrow, the magician played a trick upon the world. Time flowed backward. Childhood memories were overwritten. White flowers appeared as far as the eye could see. Brighter than the snow, they rippled like a wave across the world, devouring it.
Five timeless words.
5 timeless words. Order has fallen to ruin. What was declared had come to be. In this time and place alone, the 5th magic made itself known. In the blink of an eye, the snowy clearing had transformed. A sea of full-bloom white flowers blanket the grounds. Only the dilapidated school building and the bare winter trees signified this was the original world. The once cold wind now blew with a pleasant warmth across the landscape. Even the night sky was once again teeming with stars. If one reached out, one could always touch them. It was a mix of comfort and solitude, quite enough to carry the sound of insects flying through the air. As scenes far removed from the impurity of grief of humans. A world with nothing yet. One had the need nothing. It was the most precious memory. The winter tundra had changed into a spring meadow. Orko's so-called true magic confused Toko. Sure, it was pleasing to the eye, but she wanted to see something less idyllic. Orko's spell was clearly no small feat, but the surrounding mana had not changed. Better to be confused though, than to deal with something like Alice Kunon's Vladsnak. The only changes seemed to be the flower field and Orko's appearance. She seemed to have received some enhancement to her physical form, but it would never be enough to match Toko.
確かに魔法といえば魔法だが
Toko said with a hint of annoyance.
あいにくとお互い夢見る年頃ではないまさかそれで終わりではないだろ
Orko began walking through the sea of flowers. But she was not heading toward Toko.
いえ、これでおしまいよ。私も、あなたも。
Orko's voice had a wave of unease through Toko. Her sister's voice seemed different somehow. It was mostly the same in pitch, so it had to be the tone. No, that was the same too. Something was off. Could it be? It was then Toko noticed something else that had changed. Not just Orko and the clearing. The severed body lying at Orko's feet. It was now Hue. Corpse reanimation? Wound healing? It did not look like Orko used a significant formula, and besides the regeneration of the body did not bring it back to life. Since the dawn of time, even true magic has never been able to bring back the dead. But the body of the boy behind Orko was moving, was breathing, like it was taking a nap.
死者の蘇生が青崎の魔法いや違うあれは蘇生というより
Before she could think of an answer, Toko realized what had seemed to be out of place to her before. Orko's memories had appeared beyond the years. Her appearance had changed ever slightly, but beyond there had been a change from within. By the time Toko arrived at a seemingly impossible conclusion, Orko cast closed the distance between them.
ハーブ、セク、
Orko raised her left hand to eye level. Toko could see now. Hear the magical energy generating inside Orko. It was the sound Toko had never heard before. Orko only possessed a single function, low-grade circles no better than any other third-rate mage, so they generate the magical energy at much lower rate than Toko. However, the speed was absolutely quick, moving even faster than the blood pumping through her body. Magic could vibrate, but how in the hell were the activated magic circles audible? Even the association had never heard of such a thing.
我が目前に勝利ありき
Broad action by a sudden dread, she felt, took her to carve roots into the air. Took her summoned the divine protection of victory, Tyr, to surround itself by barrier, which was further enhanced by a crest. Paying it no mind, Oko held her arm steady, not moving it up to strike her target directly.
まだ展開
Oko commanded herself suicidally. This was beyond magecraft. In just a few words, she had fired 20 magic bullets. Like a meteor shower, the bullets smashed through the rocket-proof rune barrier as spells took a spell-woven code. The proactive runes lining her code screamed. They could not be able to take another barrage like that. And yet she already taken internal injuries. She loathed to admit, but the master of glass took her in terms of raw power. Even harder to admit was that her sister probably had not even brought out the big guns yet. Jumping backward, Toko drew more runic symbols in the air. The response in the crest burned blindly, but with a single word, I could nullify the runes, dissolving them before they could be given meaning. The power of Oaken words had surpassed the magical energy of Toko's true rune magecraft. The runes nullified, Oaken continued advancing through the white flowers. From her calmness to the robust spinning of her magic circles, and her breathing was different. A movement with sublime self-control to train only found in mages with a lifetime to combat experience. Given the evidence, that was the only explanation for the Aosaki magic. Oaken's magic circuit had not been amplified. They would have been impressive, possible anyway. Like Toko, she would have to externalize them, which would just increase the scope of her magical energy and techniques. By nature, the quality of the magic circuits did not change, but Toko was now clearly the superior mage to Toku. So there's only one logical conclusion. In just inches, she had grown from an amateur to a veteran. She fast forward to her own time. The scarred red mage turned her back on her sister and ran. She knew she could not win, so she fled toward the old school building. Oko did not fire, not out of pity, but because she decided that attacking this direction was risky. She ran to chase after her sister, but stopped suddenly. A few words caught in her throat. She took a small breath.
アリス、そいつお願い。
She was slightly embarrassed by the maturity of her voice. White petals fluttered through the air. Without looking back, she made it after Toko, her long hair flowing behind her. His eyelids snapped open. Endless Schür war from his long slumber. Ich bin zu kaum, um weiterzumachen. Mehr als 2 Stunden schon wieder keine VN. Wir werden spätestens Mittwoch weitermachen. Früher weiß ich, ob ich Zeit dafür habe. Aber war auf jeden Fall bisher ein echt schönes Kapitel. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal. Nächstes Mal geht es dann weiter mit den, was nach der True Magic passiert.